So we humans live in a world where ownership is an obsession. It's a day-to-day obsession. Each and every day you wake up, you're striving so hard so that you can own anything or something in future. And all that is because of ownership. We really want to own that car. You want to own that land. You want to own that business, the phone that you're currently using, even the clothes that you're wearing. And you can also view it in a broader perspective, in even digital assets like NFTs and cryptocurrencies. All these things we want to own them, and that's why each and every day we wake up, we grind so hard, and we put in a lot of effort so that you can own something in future. But today I want to shift your mind or thinking into a different perspective. Do we really own these things? That is the great question that we're asking right now. Do we own these things after we have acquired them, or we are just borrowing them for a given period of time and they change ownership? Because the truth is, ownership is one of the biggest illusions that humanity has ever created. So that's what you're going to be discussing today. So to kick off our discussion today, let us look at how ownership has been previously. Okay, so in the ancient times, ownership was basically about survival and responsibility. So people owned land because it helped them to feed their families. People owned various items because it helps to feed their families, to provide food, to provide shelter, to provide transport. That's what ownership was in the past. It's all about survival. And one thing you should be able to know is that in the past, people really took care of their things. So ownership was community based. So that means whatever you owned can be used by the community around, and there's a lot of responsibility on it. So if you owned land, it was owned by the community, and you also had to take care of it. If you owned an animal, you owned land, you own any item, basically, you had to take care of it. Even kids back then, they were owned by the community. So it was the responsibility of the community to even take care of the kid, to discipline your kids. And that's how it was. That was how ownership was in the past. And I believe, in my opinion, this approach really helped, because there was a lot of discipline among the kids, and there was a lot of responsibility, and people would take care of something because they knew for sure that this item is helping everyone in that particular community. So if it was an animal and it went astray, people would just carefully take it back to the owner, because they knew that animal provided transport, provided meat, provided milk, and so many other things. When it comes to kids, kids are the foundation of the society. So if the kids are brought up well, then at the end of the day, the society benefited. So most of the people lived with the awareness that an item belonged to the community and you had to take care of it. Now, along the way, there came things changed as far as ownership is concerned, and we were looking at private properties. Now, in this case, ownership changed. So previously it was community based. Now it changed, and basically it became like a private property. So now people started fencing their land, and you just put a very strong sign there saying, oh, this is private property, you're not allowed to trespass. So it is no longer belonging to the community. So now people introduced, let's say, fencing of lands, taxes were introduced, laws emerged to define ownership, because initially it was just community based, but right now it is private based. So owning land meant that you had a lot of wealth, you had status, and you had power. So people who owned land, people who owned, let's say, donkeys, or maybe cars, they had a certain status. So along the way, ownership changed, and that is how it came to be. Now this shift really changed history, and from there, survival was redefined. So people could even fight for property, people could fight to own land and maintain that particular status. Okay, so that's really the illusion of ownership greatest crimes in history at this period of private property, because people could literally do anything to own a particular item, and then along the way they had to fight to keep that ownership. Now, how did ownership change currently as we are looking at today? Now, ownership has also been progressed, because as you can see previously it was community based, then it became to be a private property, and then we introduced things like taxes, laws were introduced to define ownership, and then now we're looking at it today. So ownership now has really changed, because now it's I think it has even gotten worse, because you buy a house and then you think you own it, but then along the way you have to start paying property tax for it. Okay, and then if you don't pay those property tax, the government comes and takes it back. Okay, so do you really own that house? Well, we'll answer that question along the way. And then we look at land. You buy land, but if you don't, the government can still come and seize it and do it for some development projects. Okay, remember we're still talking about the same land, nothing has really changed. And then we talk about cars. Now you buy that car, you pay for taxes for it, but for it to run you need fuel, you need to pay for insurance, you need to pay a lot of registration and so on. Okay, so what about the bank's accounts? Right now we're talking about our digital world. You buy that phone, but behind the scenes you're still paying for it. Okay, the bank accounts that you have, the government can access them anytime they want, they can freeze them. Okay, inflation directly affects the amount of money that is stored in a bank. Okay, taxation directly affects it. So at the end of the day, it's not fully yours. Okay, that's ownership currently. So when you think about it, even in your digital life, your social media accounts, it can be Facebook, it can be Instagram, you don't own that account, even if you're paying for it. Okay, you don't own the data, you don't own the content. The developers or the company behind that, they own it, and you have to pay each and every month if you own a premium account for you to be able to access it. So basically you're just renting it out. Okay, you're paying it so that they can keep on processing it. So basically ownership today is really a conditional permission. As long as you play by the rules, as long as you pay to access it, then you'll be able to access those particular services. And that's where the issue of subscription based, because everything is now a subscription. I've even seen even cars, you can subscribe to maybe increase acceleration, you can subscribe for maybe an efficient. So this software thing has really changed ownership. So at this point we can say that ownership is basically based on the current world. We can say that it is just renting it out, because you don't fully own it, because as much as you have paid for it and you haven't paid a subscription, then you can't use that particular item. Okay, now how does ownership change when you look at it in a spiritual perspective as far as a religion is concerned? So looking it spiritually, we can still ask ourselves this question: can we really own anything? Okay, and as we're going to see, different faith or different philosophies all point to the same truth, and the answer is going to shock you. Now when you look at Islam, all wealth, land and resources belong to God. Okay, so it means that we humans, we are just caretakers. We can't fully own something, because that's why you see you come into earth, struggle so hard, you given it by God, gives you those particular items. That's what they believe, and you're given for a given period of time, you take care of it, and then your time comes, you leave, and you can't go with those items. Of course, you leave them and then they're handed over to the next person. So we are just being given ownership at that particular time, and then when their time is up, you're probably dead, you just leave it and it's transferred onto the next person. So everything that you have is owned by God. Now when you look at Christianity, that's why it all talks about naked you came and naked you will leave earth. So what does it mean? You came without nothing, you're given something for you that period you're going to live on earth, and then eventually when it's your time to die, you're going to leave those particular items on earth. So you own nothing. Whatever you have, you've just been given for that period of time, and then when time comes, you just leave it. And then in Buddhism, you can see that attachment to possessions creates sufferings. Okay, so you don't truly own anything. So all these three religions, they totally agree that you own nothing, and whatever you have here on earth, you have been given by God. God has entrusted it to you, and then when your time comes to live, you basically leave every item here, and then you're going to proceed on to your next life. So even in philosophy, we can see that control is limited. We don't own anything. We just borrow what we're using right now until they are taken away. Okay, so if we don't own the earth, the land, or even the bodies, what do we really own? And the answer is basically our choices, our actions. That's what we own. We own the choices and we own the actions, whatever your choices are making. But as far as the items are concerned, we own nothing on earth. Now, when you come to think of it, ownership normally gives us the feeling of control and the feeling of power. But in my opinion, I think that ownership or control is just basically an illusion, because life constantly proves to us that control can be taken away anytime. Okay, you can have a beautiful home, but then a natural disaster comes in and it wipes the house away. Okay, or maybe the economy collapses. You are a billionaire, the next morning you just wake up with nothing to your name. Okay, or maybe you can be having a lot of money, but then diseases happen, because the health issues are one of the most issues that can really bankrupt you. Okay, a disease can just come and it can wipe away all the money that you have because you just take it to the hospital. Okay, so in my opinion, I think that ownership is less about possessions and it's all about stewardship. So you have been entrusted the items, the money, the power by God for that period of time, and then when it's your time to pass it to someone else, you just go. Okay, so basically that's what control is. So what does this really mean to us? So what should we basically do as far as ownership is concerned? One thing you should understand is ownership is temporary. Okay, it's not permanent. That's why you see somebody is a billionaire today, the next day they are not. Today your business is working so well, tomorrow it's not. Okay, so the land you own, protect it, the wealth you have, but you should do it in a responsible way, knowing that this is something you have been entrusted to you at that particular period of time. So you should be really viewing it as a gift. Okay, so the question is, what do you really own? Okay, and whatever you own, what are you doing about it? Okay, in your opinion, you think that particular business, that particular car, okay, anything can just wake up one morning and that car is no longer around, because things do happen. Okay, and it can change ownership anytime. Okay, or you maybe think it's your effort, whatever you have maybe worked so hard for it. Do you think about that? Okay, so the question is about ownership, and we have said that it's temporary. Okay, and we have been given the opportunity to be a steward at that particular time. So whatever you have does not belong to you permanently, because it will be transferred on to the next person. So whatever we own is our choices and our stewardship. So whatever you have, take it with so much care, believing that next time it will be passed on to your kids or to somebody else, because at the end of the day, naked we came, naked we shall leave earth. Okay, so be a good steward with whatever you own, with whatever you have that particular time, and make sure that whatever you're doing, you should not think about just yourself. Think about the person it will pass on to next. So thank you guys, and see you in the next video.